Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank God it's Friday. Again, we are around the season. Let me say Happy International Women's Day. You can see that our facilitator is dressed in purple and our slide has some shades of purple. Don't mind my person. I am in full solidarity. My heart is currently colored purple and my blood is purple right now. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun. Welcome to HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at the topic, applying user-centered design to employee experience. And it's leveraging on a design thinking framework for people experience strategists. I'm excited to bring to us, again, for the second time in quick succession, Adebisi Ogunsoya. I must confess, the feedback following your first session has been overwhelmingly positive and people really enjoyed it. Ladies and gentlemen, you may want to reach out to one or two people to join this call. There's permit my use of English, blessing attached specially to life. Yes, you gain by watching the recording, but there's something with the life. You also help to shape the live session because you can contribute, ask questions, and enrich this session. Nonetheless, I would like to read very briefly the profile of Adebisi Ogunsoya. She is a certified people experience and culture strategist at global level. She has the GPHR. She has a background in history. She has over 6 years of experience, but looks like 16, designing high-performing, human-centered workplace across fintech, edtech, and health-tech environments. She currently drives people expense initiatives at Money Point. If you don't like money, don't be a friend. Where she architects systems that balance performance, growth, and belonging at scale. Her expertise spans the full employee lifecycle, from engagement and performance management to learning, HRIS optimization, and culture transformation, applying frameworks such as journey mapping, which we enjoyed some access to last time, personal design, Kaizen principles to build structured, data-backed employee experience systems. She's guided by pro-humanity philosophy and has a passion for social advocacy beyond human resource management. Her work focuses on shaping future-forward workplaces where people feel seen, empowered, and positioned to do meaningful work. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome warmly Adebisi Ogunsoya. She speaks to us this evening on the topic, applying user-centered design to employee experience. You have the floor. Thanks for gracing us with your wisdom and
Thank you very
experience.
much for that warm welcome. Thank you so much. All right. So my name is Adebisi Ogunsoya. Once again, I'm GPHR certified human resource professional. To begin my presentation today is to share a quick story. I remember my very first interview in the tech startup was for an employee experience lead role. And I remember I just had about 1 year of HR intern experience. And I know that when I saw the JD, I was very fascinated about the idea of employee experience, even when I had no experience whatsoever in that field. And I remember I joined the interview, my CV passed the screening stage, surprisingly, and I got to be interviewed. And I remember that my then manager, she was one on the call. One thing that she mentioned afterwards was that, you were so not experienced for that role, but I saw how passionate you were speaking about experience strategies that you had no idea on. And, and further was she actually did give me a role that they were recruiting for, which was a recruitment associate role that was fitting for my entry-level experience. And I think that I remember within some few months, probably 2 to 3 months, I moved from a recruitment associate role to a people ops associate role that, managed and also saw the end-to-end life cycle processes within that tech startup. And I think it's really a testament to the fact that this employee experience is not random. It's been intentional. My expertise in it has been quite intentional. And it's something that I have, even when there was no language for it, even when it wasn't popular in our ecosystem, it's a vision I've been nurturing from about 6 to 7 years ago. And it's really a very interesting topic. It's one that I really always love to talk about. So yes, moving on, just moving on from that story. So our topic today is user-centered design. And when it comes to user-centered design, we're going to get to what that means. But I'll start off with a very simple question that says here that why is it that companies spend billions designing beautiful customer experiences, yet they treat their own employees as afterthoughts? If we look at how we are obsessed about user experience, and user experience meaning customers, user experience is just the lingua that we use in tech status because we are building for users, and we see that companies, and when you are doing product mapping, product roadmap, we have the users in mind. And the question is, why don't we what's the word? Navigate or put that energy into our own employees too that are designing the processes for customers? Because one ideology I believe very much in is you can't give what you don't have. So if you are not pouring into your employees, they will not transfer that. There's no template for them to use to be able to transfer such experiences to your customers, right? So it's really that behavioral science part, like that I mentioned in the last class, of empathy mapping and journey mapping. And when it comes to employee experience, there is the foundational principles are really hinged on behavioral science, behavioral theories, psychological theories that explain why people behave the way they do. And it's not surprising that that also is established in organizations, because people make up organizations. As end users, as employees, as leaders, as management, we're all people. We're all people, and everything is to the end of humanity. So I would say, yeah, that these are the stats that it's globally certified worldwide, where we see that 85% of employees, according to Gallup, are disengaged at work. Companies that have very strong employee experience actually make more profit, times 4 more profit than other companies, because they have strong AX. This is by this is by Jacob Morgan, and we see that just in US as a country alone, about a lot of companies, they lose about $1.9 trillion alone just to disengagement. And it tells us, it paints a picture to us that if, in as much as engagement experience are seen as soft concept, they've been seen as soft concepts in the past, it's no longer a soft concept. And you can see why that has shifted. We see because the world is becoming more sensitive. We're becoming more exposed. People want more in life, more than money, more than, they want purpose, they want vision. You know, especially when you're also building for the future of work. That future of work basically means you're building workspaces for the younger people coming, because by the time they finish from school, they are going to be the one in the workforce. So we are building for them. And when you talk about young people, we see that these things matter to them, right? And so with the growing, because we can't compare the previous generation to this current generation, and this current generation to the future generation, because like I mentioned, civilization has grown, civilization has advanced. In fact, you cannot even compare a 4-year-old child to a 4-year-old child in 1990s. The exposure, the level of intelligence, the level of articulation has grown. So there must be intentional design in the business or within the company that aligns with the way humanity has evolved, humanity has advanced, the conversations that people are having, what matters to people in the now, in the present, and in the future. So you can see that it takes a lot of, because you're working with people, it takes a lot of actually understanding the people that you're working and you're building for. So, like I did mention this in the last webinar, where I talked about paradigm shift, where, you know, HR has moved from HR to what we call HR to human management, and there is that growing shift to building experiences around the workspace. If you have not come across this, I want to let you know you have come across it, and it's something that we should think about. Even if we're in the African ecosystem, we want to compete globally with first world countries or organizations that are global. We need to think in alignment with how they are thinking, because a lot of times our African ecosystem allows us to be very short-term oriented. We are more about the past than we're about the future. And we cannot build innovative solutions like that. We need to be forward future thinking. We need to be future forward. We need to begin to think for the long term rather than building for the short term, so that we build systems that are sustainable, frameworks, systems, philosophy, paradigms that are sustainable, and it's they just solve pain points at the end of the day. So you would see here that I did mention something about traditional HR and employee experience. So there's that shift, and in that shift, we see that traditional HR used to be very process driven. When it comes to the title, HR shifted, job title shifted, especially in the tech ecosystem. It shifted from just HR to people operations, to people and process. So those were the names that, I when I joined the tech world that were buzzing, that were popular, rather than instead of HR itself. So when it comes to that, you can see even traditional HR, even the beginning of HR within the tech ecosystem was process driven, compliance focus. It was a one-size-fits-all program. It was very reactive, transactional. Meaning it was give and take. Your job, just do your job and leave, pay, and they just go. There was nothing that was more compelling other than get your work done and pay and you get salary and you move on. HR was support function. HR was seen as more like help to employees, where they would run errands, they would tell you, okay, go and do this, or we need to, all of that many stuff. And traditional HR sees managing the workforce like you have to manage people, like you have to tell people do's and don'ts. You constantly have to tell people what to do, right? So that's usually the approach. But when it now comes to employee experience, in a way that it's different, because we move from process-driven approach to human-driven and emotional journeys. I would say this: employees pretty much live all their life at work. We resume work 9 to 5, five times a week. The only time we have to ourselves, as the world is right now, is weekends. Even some people work in the weekends. So it would be quite disingenuous. When I mean this, it would be quite what's the English now? Quite insincere for you to expect that people will not have a certain expectations that as a company, you need to begin to build intentionally for them, because they live all their life at work. A lot of people sacrifice family, me time, just to meet KPIs, just to meet demands from work. And, with that level of sacrifice, with that level of how the world is really mapped out now, they spend majorly and most of their lives at work, and it should count for something. So you should begin to think of them when you are designing systems, that, okay, these people that are always at work with us, how can we make the journey that they have in our organization part-time, how can we make it more memorable? How can we make it more emotional? Because like I mentioned in the former class, it's a work relationship, and work relationship has a lot to do with, it's a soul-to-soul thing. It's emotional, however way you want to put it, in as much as it's professional, in as much as in my team it is rigid, it's just a give and take, it's transactional. You would know that it's emotional when you lay off people and people are crying, and people have panic attacks, they have anxiety. You have dismantled and disrupted their emotions. You will know it is emotional when you give people offer letters and you will see literally the joy on their faces. You will know it is emotional when people don't get the promotions that they get, and all of a sudden they are down. It's it affects them emotionally and they cannot perform well. You will know they're emotional when you give people promotion letters and they're so happy. It feels like, it's just that joy. It's emotional, regardless of, and those touch points, where you do something that triggers people's emotions, it needs to be paid attention to. And that's what, and I think I talked about it in the last class when it talks about life circle, and we're going to touch on it in this class as well. So we can say compliance focus into experience and belonging focus. So rather than compliance focused. I think I did mention this again, that rules, policies do not exist to serve, to laud people. I take this framework. I think I did learn this from, apologies, as a Christian, where I read in my Bible about when Jesus was talking to, was saying something in the Bible, and he said that rules do not exist. The Sabbath was not, rules do not exist to be lord over people. It was to serve people. So whatever rules, whatever regulations you are building, it is to the end of people, it is to the end of humanity. So if it is not helping people, it's more likely a bottleneck. So you should, it's not more of an experience and belonging thing. Like, does this actually help people feel and experience the company better in a positive way? Does it help with making people feel have this sense of belonging, inclusivity? What exactly is this aim of policies, compliance, and all of that? Is it also to help risk mitigation? Because when you think about it, I'm not actually saying compliance is not, no, compliance that is reasonable and tells us the why. It's to protect people, it's to protect the company. When you say, okay, everybody should maybe should not come late and there's penalty for coming late, it tells us that, oh, because you know that people sacrifice their time to come early, why should other people be different and now make the people who came early look like fools? So when you narrate it that way, it shows the balance that actually you really do care about people, and if there are other things that are happening that are affecting the people, another set of people, we need to caution it. So it's holistic. It's advocating for everybody on every ground. Then we have one size fits all program. Now we're talking about personalized and personal based design. This personal based design, the previous session that we had talked deeply on this. Then we are moving from reactive to proactive and empathy-led. Like I mentioned, everything is emotional. When you want to terminate an employee, there is a way you say it. You don't, it's going to be very emotionally unintelligent for you to say things, for you to narrate or lay that person off carelessly. It's so I personally take it very serious. Like, it's a personal thing for me. Like, in whatever you do not dehumanize people. You need to, even if you are having exits, let your exit process be dignified, because everybody, humanity, people, whatever situation they are in, you should dignify it. You should make them feel, there should be an element of dignity. You should be able to cover whatever it might be, but more like honoring people's humanity in a way that, you dignify them, you lead with empathy, you are sensitive to where your emotional state might be, and you lead with that. It's very important, because human beings are not robots. They are flesh and blood, and they have emotions, and you don't know what your words can actually do and how it's impacting people emotionally. So HR as support function, now HR as strategic partner. And I did talk about this, where it's strategic partner in the sense that you are not just supporting, you are creating an holistic overview of what HR should be as a function, and you are tying whatever you're doing to organizational goals. That's what makes you a strategic partner. You're not waking up and building things that the company does not need. You know that, okay, this is where the company is getting to, these are the goals, these are the objectives. You align whatever HR initiative, HR function you do, you're handling into that goal. That is what may give you a seat at the table. That is what makes you strategic. Then manage the workforce. We're not managing workforce. We're not telling them what to do. We are now co-creating with them. I did mention that, for example, when you are you want to create an initiative or a party or a workplace party, you don't just come and say sometimes, even if the trick is that even if you already know what you want to do, there's a way you would define the messaging and the wording that you come and message in. You frame the internal comms when you're saying to employees that, oh, we just want to, we are thinking of doing this and this. We would like for your suggestions in doing this and this. These are the options that we have, and we're trying to just calibrate and see what it ends. Like that, you are able to get people's feedback that, oh, maybe someone even knows the venue, has used the venue before, and it's like, oh, this venue, this venue might not work for me because, oh, I live. You get that feedback immediately before you then plan something and you realize that, oh, it's such a far distance for employees. People are grumbling, people are complaining because you didn't bring them in the picture at the initial stage. You sort of like came to, and when I mentioned this in the last class, that when it comes to working with a young workforce, one thing that I have really learned, I learned it painstakingly after I have made the mistake of, okay, doing like what people usually do, just come and tell them what to do. And I had to learn that they like when you co-create with them, when you get their feedback before you even begin to do anything. Even if it doesn't need to be perfect, you don't need to come and display one perfect slide. Just come and gather them from the beginning, get their feedback, and move and build along with it. And that's really the context and the mapping of what we're going to be talking about today. So just quickly moving forward is to yes. So what is employee experience design? If you notice my slides, I tend to be I have a lot of visual elements, a lot of all of these flashy things. It's intentional because I cannot be speaking to you about design and not have these things clearly seen, like, or clearly expressed this way. And these are actually one of the things that I intentionally do when it comes to employee experience, is making sure that your processes or the template, the comms you're using is intuitive, it's engaging, there's elements of colors in it. It's all intentional. You can see that it takes a lot of intentionality because you're trying to gather all the senses at once. You are trying to gather all human senses, their visual sight, their hearing, their thinking, their touch. You try to make sure that all that is captured when you are communicating or when you have been building employee experiences. And we're going to get to that because that's a major part of our case study for today. So the intentional design of human, so what is EXD? EXD is employee experience design. It is the intentional design of HR systems, environments, and interactions that shapes how employees feel and behave at work. EX includes the physical workplace, digital tools, culture, manager relationship, growth, and development. It includes, something about employee and removal. All right. So, like I was mentioning, the entire ecosystem and how people experience the company, its employee experience, from the day that you are seeing your JD or your job ad on the internet, it's the type of emotions you are able to create from people per time, and navigating that emotion, like carrying people from point A to point Z, it's an experience design process. And a lot of people leave that to chance, where, for example, people come, they see your job ad on the internet and your JD isn't clear. We don't understand your employee value proposition. In fact, the salary is already tell you, for example, something that I particularly always find funny is when I see a HR role, and they're paying about 200 and they're asking for SPHR certification. And I'm like, what exactly are you telling people? That you want to pay this certain amount of money, and you're expecting people that, have spent dollars literally to take a certification, because SPHR, GPHR, those are certifications that are not in error, and you want to pay them a certain amount. It already tells me that, what's going on here, literally. So that type of emotion where somebody feels like, this is not okay. That's where employee experiences design comes to play, where you want people to see your JD, that they are able to align with the mission. They get the mission, they get the vision, immediately they are reading through, that they are excited with how you have crafted your comms, the job ad, and they're excited and they want to join. And from the point where they apply, the message you send to them on your HRS platform, oh, we're excited that you applied, these are the, and you also lead with clarity on the next steps. And if maybe they don't get a call back or a message, and it's, something like that, going the extra mile to help people gauge and navigate their emotions. Sometimes you would think, oh, is it really that serious? Is it really that deep? I think that it depends on your company's philosophy. If as an organization, you are very intentional about getting the best talent, it will matter. If as an organization you are trying to compare with world global standards, it will matter. If as an organization you are trying to lead and you are trying to lead the market, you are trying to create a culture where that is different from the norm, it would matter. It very much matters. So the goal is to create environments where people can actually thrive and perform. The goal is not, because when it comes to psychological and the culture that we have in Nigeria and the African continent at large, a lot of people are on survival. They are trying to survive. It's on dog eat dog. It's very what's the word? Success. Everybody wants to be successful at any cost. Everybody is trying to survive. And there is a way that actually impacts people's nervous system, even when they don't know. That's also the psychological part and mental part. It affects your nervous system. It affects your relationship. But when it comes to employee experiences, and we're not doing it based on, okay, we want people to just survive. We want them to come up either. And we're adding another layer where people can actually thrive. You don't have to, it doesn't always have to be a dog world where you are constantly just scrabbling just to, make money, or you can actually do so well. And while you're performing optimally, it can be balanced. It is not a neither or no or this. It's a yes and yes, and it can happen. But it will not happen by chance. It will happen by intentionally designing the framework for it. So when you now talking about the next slide is to now say, how do we sync design, experience, and engagement? We've talked about what experience is. It is the interactions people have. It is how people feel about your organization. This is it. Yes. So design is how we build intentional experiences that leads to good people experience and engagement. Like I personally say, my personal theory is that engagement, you don't necessarily drive engagement. Engagement simply means how people are committed, how they are passionate about your organization and the success of it. How you do that is not necessarily by jumping there. It is an outcome of an intentionally designed system for people in that your organization. So experience is what you have designed. How do they then make people experience your company? And the funniest part is that you think that, oh, you have to design something. Whatever you think, whatever you have even done randomly that you have not actually crafted and curated is already a design on its own. It's a design. So when you just do things and people just come into your office and there's no clear-cut process of onboarding, it's a design. It's a design. In fact, when you're unintentional, you're also intentionally unintentional. It's still something that is intentional, and even if you left it to chance and left it right, it's still a process, right? So it is how employees experience your company internally. And I dare say that when it comes to emotional experiencing your company, it's never neutral. It is either negative, it is either good. Neutral, and sometimes when it's neutral, it is usually neutral tilting to it's just average, or just mediocre. It's just, there's always, people's emotions are never at a baseline. It is either it is tilted to being positive, it is either it's tilted to being negative. Whatever, it's just people just finding where they are per time. Then engagement then is the goal of the company. It is the end result of your design, your experience, how everything leads to making sure that people are committed to your organization. They carry the mission, they carry your vision at heart, and that's what then leads to a committed, driven, and high-performing workforce. So going to the next slide. So now, when you now talk about user-centered design, we've talked about employee experience. Now we'll talk about user-centered design. You need to understand it's very simple, really. Design, right? You design things. And design has a lot to do with workflows, how things move from point A to point B. Design thinking is an iterative process in which we seek to understand the user, we challenge assumptions they might have, and we define the problems to identify solutions that may not be instantly apparent. So when applied to employee experience, the user, your employee, is the user. So like I mentioned in the last webinar of empathy mapping, is that you start, if there is any prototype HR solutions you want to create, any initiative, any performance management framework you want to do, any onboarding process you want to create, anything you want to do as an HR function, what user-centered design teaches you is that these people that you are building it for, it's more like you start with them and you do reverse engineering. It's like, okay, the end result, what do we want people to feel? How do we want them to experience this organization? What is that story we are telling them? And working our way back. So it's like, for example, I want employees on their first day to just feel, to just not be stressed out or to not be overwhelmed. So that already tells you that the way you would design your onboarding process is going to be different from an organization that wants their employee, a new hire, to start to hit the ground on the first day, right? If you want your user, a new hire, to be excited even in the first week, how you would design the onboarding process, you will not just do boring things. You will put engaging games. You will bring the elements of gamification, leaderboard, badges. You would design it, in a way that speaks to how people really like to be engaged, and how multi-generation in the workforce like to be engaged. So you would design it. So it is when you start with the end point. How do you want people to experience their first day at this our company? And you work your way back and you begin to create and design it to that end goal. That is pretty much what user-centered design thinking is. Then it's like some of the prompts here: desirable. What do people actually need? Need analysis. Like I mentioned in the last webinar, whatever initiative you are doing, you start with a need analysis and you end with evaluation. You end with testing, with iterating. Did this work? What areas can we improve? Visible, what is technically possible. You don't want to be too out of touch, out of reality, that you bring something that is so idealistic that cannot be broken down and operationally delivered, right? Then what is viable? Again, being strategic. What creates business value? How does this tie to business goals? We want people to feel excited in their first day. This excitement, this feeling, what will it lead to? It will lead to higher time to productivity, right? It will lead to higher faster integration, onboarding integration for new hires. Even when you're even talking about performance management as well, when you want to redesign your performance framework, you want people to feel that they are rightly rewarded for the work they do. So that would help you. Okay, when they are rightly rewarded for what they do, how does it help you? How does it help the organization? It helps organization where people feel like they can be more innovative, they can solve solutions, they put they are more committed. So it's all of that, and tying it down to key business metrics, relating it to key business values that actually brings value to the business. So moving to the next slide, the design thinking framework applied to employee experience, right? So in this part, we are talking about that design thinking framework and how we apply it. And I talked about this in the last webinar. That last webinar was very loaded. It was deep. This one is just, this class is more like it's like an overview. It's like the definition of what we talked about in the last webinar. So number one, you want to empathize. And when you talk about this MBA, I'm going to come back to it, but you want to empathize, you want to listen deeply, conduct interviews, you want to define the problem, you want to do problem definition. What exactly is the pinpoint we're trying to solve here? People in performance management, people often feel like the performance management process is too tedious, so they don't even really get to they don't do appraisals on time, and appraisals are delayed and it affects salary review. So that is a problem statement. The performance process appraisal system is bothersome. You want to define that problem. You want to create employee persona and journey maps. This employee persona and journey map, meaning in one stage, performance management, which is usually under the growth and development life cycle stage. This is where these employees are. What do they need when they're in the business? They need reassurance. They need security. They need stability. How do we begin to work our compensation structures, our performance appraisal that talk about these things and reassures them that, okay, we are designing these things for you and for your needs. Then ideate, brainstorming ideas. You want to involve, like I mentioned, you want to involve employees in co-creating solutions. No idea is too bold, but yet every idea must be viable. Every idea must be realistic enough to be driven. Prototype, you want to build lightweight experiments. I mean, we really broke this down in the webinar on Friday. And iterate, you want to be able to test what you have built. So prototype, you want to build pilot prototypes. And for people who are not in the former webinar, this is what it means. It says you want to build solutions, and you want to, instead of maybe you have 100 employees, you would take that initiative that you have designed, test it in about 20, in a department of about 20 people before you now expand it, expand it organizational wide, so that whatever feedback you get, you are able to improve it and finally then scale it and spread it company wide. So at the end of the day, all of these stages are not straightforward. It's a lot of, you can start with maybe problem definition before you come to empathizing, which means that you are trying to really understand what the emotional state is and work with it, right? So we're going to come back to this type, but just moving on. Okay, so this is my case study, Airbnb. During my research of employee experiences models, I do a lot of personal research myself, and I came across, there have been different organizations that have really revamped what the future of work is and what work currently should look like. And they have established templates that companies that are looking to be more globally competitive can actually follow. And this is one of the companies, Airbnb. This is how a hospitality brand, how they pioneered the shift from HR to employee experience. So we will start with Mark Levy. Mark Levy was the head of people experience at Airbnb. He was one that transformed the ecosystem, and most of the initiatives that he propelled and propagated led to them being the best place to work in 2016 as a Glassdoor review. Out of all the companies that existed then, and they were able to crack the code of building employee experiences that led to a visible outcome, which was best place to work in 20. And in Nigeria, we have that under the Great Place to Work institute that assigns and credits organizations like that. So we have, and it also did help their employee value proposition, where for a small number of roles, there were a lot of resumes that they had. That means they had good employee value proposition, they had good employer branding that really helps them to get the best talent at all in whatever roles that they were employing for. Then they had their mission. There was the framework when it comes to design. One of the things that I really want us to take note of is that designs do not exist without a philosophy. There must be a conviction, a why to why you're designing this thing. What is your guiding principle that, okay, because we are designing for a certain mission and vision, there's some things you will not do. If you want to design that you want people to feel seen and heard in an organization, where you want there to be psychological safety, where people feel safe to question things without being punished for it, you will not act carelessly, and you would then be counterproductive to what you are trying to build. So your framework, having good frameworks, this is my own personal, this is something I love to do. I like to just create frameworks. I have different frameworks I use that guides why the reasons I do the things I do, even as a career professional. So I have like a number of them, 3H, that's what I call the ants, the acts, and the ed. It tells, and that's what I use to, as a guiding philosophy for employee experience, which means, this is my personal, so I'm just sharing it here. Which means ed talks about talent development, career trajectory, growth. The art talks about the emotions of the business, experience people feel. Then the ants is the competences, the technical skills, developing competences that actually help people do the job and deliver on the job. So when you bring that all together, it's a framework for talent development at scale. It's a framework for talent management at scale. So mission, one of their mission in Airbnb was belong anywhere. That was and this mission was something that they designed for customers externally. But in employee experience, they then brought that external mission and brought it internally that, okay, if we are building a product, right, for customers that we want them to belong anywhere. Airbnb, Airbnb, they're like, they allow people who have houses to host other guests in the country or whatever location they might be. So if we want that brand or that mission that we want, that's what we are promising external customers. How would the employees drive that if themselves, we have not built a system where that truly makes them feel like they can belong anywhere and do the work that they do? That was their guiding philosophy that reimagined their HR to employee experience. And it was really an interesting one. So moving on to the next slide is, yes. So based off from the design thinking elements, how did they bring design thinking into what they did? You see, if you're very interested in this, I need you to go and just Google Airbnb employee experience. There's a ton of materials that would help you in that regard. So like I mentioned, when it comes to design thinking framework here, what they did under Airbnb was empathizing with the employees. So the CEO was actually the one that led this charge. And I remember in 2020, 2022, their company, there was a comms that they shared, that the CEO shared, that was laying off employees, but it was so inane that people felt like it was such a cute way to say that, oh, you are being laid off. I read the message and it was like, wow, I don't even know if maybe I'll be happy if they laid me off like this. And it is also part of the things that they talk about dignified transitions where, and I think for Airbnb, they gave them a very robust severance package. I think it was about 2 to 3 months or 4 months in lieu. They gave them extended healthcare insurance. They also, I think they did one other thing. It's a risk in my mind, but they made sure, okay, if we were laying off people like this, what are they going to feel? The first pain point is they don't have money until they find a new job. They don't have HMO or health insurance. How can we extend it maybe for a month after, and all of that stuff? So it's taking that, because again, people have worked with you all their life and you're just laying them off. It's so destabilizing. And you're just thinking, and some of these things are very expensive, I will not lie, for them to be able to give people such severance package. It shows that they were very profitable to an extent, right? And I do understand that there can be some expense, it can be quite expensive, but I would say that throughout my career, there are inexpensive ways you can create employee experiences. It's applying that human connection. You don't have to give them maybe a lot of, if your business cannot afford it, but there's a way that you would communicate that termination message that will tell them that, okay, they have to do what they did, but there are times like that where I will literally hear people say, I understand why they lead us off. They will even be the one advocating for the company. It has happened, and I've experienced that personally. So the CEO required all leaders to leave the employee and host experience firsthand. So that meant that they decided to also understand what the customers were feeling, and they put their employees in place where, for example, every year there was an annual stipend for the employees to travel to an Airbnb location or houses or host location and do the work that the host or the customers would do. So they would give them money to go and lodge in an Airbnb and give them feedback on how they can better improve the process. So it made sure that the employees were at the forefront of the product they were mapping out. And and with that, they were also able to get live feedback that helped them to better their product in the long run. Then defining the problem. For example, Airbnb, they created employee personas to redesign performance management. They call it hostel conversations. We're going to get to that, where they sort of personalized the performance management system. It wasn't something that was so standardized. It was something that, they felt, because the idea was that you belong anywhere in a place with a sense of home, right? So they said, okay, you belong anywhere, because something about Airbnb is talking about homes. It's homely. The idea, the holistic experience is homely. So they decided to make it like hosting conversations, making it homely for their employees, right? And Airbnb, when it now comes to ideating, how they co-created with the employees, what they did was that they utilized ground control teams. The ground control team were operational, were the work office manager, right? So they were the ones in charge of the buildings, infrastructure, the office manager. and they co-created with the employees across every department. Okay, this department, how do they want to? And I think one particular example that they were able to do this was in redesigning the office workspace. So what Airbnb did, and that thing blows my mind every time I think about it, is that their offices, they designed it like an Airbnb host location. So you see, like they designed it like an apartment rather than a standardized white lights everywhere, white light type of workspace. But they designed it to be homely, to be like an Airbnb host, so that people can actually feel like they're at home while still belonging anywhere from anywhere. So you will see that it was a lot of intentionality, and it really blows my mind how they were able to do that as at 10 years ago, and they worked with that philosophy that really did help them in the long run. So Airbnb also, when it now comes to prototyping HR solutions, they piloted the Belong Anywhere workspace model before they rolled it out globally. So in specific locations, they piloted it, they got feedback, they iterated before they now rolled it out globally. Then the last one is iteration, right? So they use continuous pulse surveys. I did mention this in the last webinar, Glassdoor data to refine EX programs. So whatever feedback they were getting as they were doing change management, they didn't wait for annual engagement surveys to get feedback. Pulse surveys, short, fast, rapid surveys that help people they ask key strategic questions to get quick feedback, and they used it to refine their employee experience program. So it's literally the way when if you have experience in startups or in tech products or in products developing a product where you are building it, you cannot, for you to have a perfect product, it's never really perfect, right? You iterate it, you are consistently improving, layering, making it better, and using feedback, fast feedback, and you are being agile, very agile in your approach, right? So that's pretty much how Airbnb utilized this process. I mean, they were the founding fathers of I would say the founding companies that really talk about design thinking and utilize it, that then led to explosive results and outcome for them. So moving forward is the different stages. I'm just going to run through this because I have done a breakdown of this in the former webinar, but I'll just go through. So this is the empathy imperative that tells us we have to listen before we build, right? So you want to step into employee shoes. You're not just using quantitative surveys, but you are immersing yourself. And you can't do that if you're not an empathetic person. I must say, if you're not sensitive enough, if you don't know how to discern people's pain points, where that thing is hurting them the most, it requires articulation. You need to be able to articulate how people are feeling a certain way, even when they themselves, they don't know that they are feeling that certain way, right? So there's that part of it too. And you immerse yourself in listening. There's something that I say that a lot of people sometimes are too stubborn. They don't even listen. You don't want to be that type of employee experience strategist where, whatever people give you or what people are telling you, you're not listening to it. You're doing what you want to do. It tells us that you're just wasting people's time here. You're not using the feedback, right? So you want to conduct empathy interviews. For example, a simple question, tell me about a moment you felt more supported at work. You will be very surprised about the answers you will get. It could be something very minute and mundane that you never could think could matter, but it mattered to people and made them feel supported. So shadow employees in their first day, if you have the time, you want to be able to, okay, this is how these things feel, maybe in the workspace, when they come in, what's the first person that they will meet, is the gate open, the workspace, is it tidy, all of that many stuff. Then observing their pain points and pleasures and moments of delight, mapping emotions, not just the processes, but how employees feel at every touch point life circle. Went deeper on it in the last class, and it's just talking about how from the hiring stage to the attraction stage to the hiring stage to the onboarding, what are the messaging that you are telling people? Are you just careless? You just say, hey, Temi, thank you for this. This is your offer letter. Are you actually building using stories of your organization in the onboarding? You want them to understand where you are coming from. This is where you are at now, making them feel like a part of a community. That takes a lot of community building skills there's a part of that when it comes to employee experience, you really you need to have that skill as well, right? So separating what employees say they need versus what they actually experience, right? So it's where people might say a thing, they need this thing, but it's different from what they're actually experiencing within the business. So Airbnb in action, like I mentioned, the CEO required that every leader in every senior management position actually personally stay as a Airbnb host and experience the product they were selling to customers. The employee experience head also applied the same radical empathy inward, requiring the EX team, the employee experience team, to experience every stage of the employee journey from interview to exit. So the same way the CEO told them, like, okay, as employees, you should go and meet the customers and know their pain point. In the same way, employees too, in the HR team, employee experience team, they were required to also observe pattern recognition, observe pain point in the employee journey, and identify pain points and moments of delight. So moving forward quickly, okay, so this part is just key EX empathy tools, interviews and all the likes. But let me just quickly go back to that. So day in the life shadowing, focus groups as well, using group or cohort of employees that have similar, maybe similarities, maybe location, maybe it could be location based, it could be interest based, all those things, and using pulse surveys. So those are the type of tools that you use to be able to listen to employees' needs. Then the defining stage. For defining stage, this is where you utilize the employee journey map, employee life cycle, indicating identifying moments that matter. So, I mean, this is just a brief summary, honestly speaking, but going deeper, the last webinar would help you, right? So attracted, that's the attraction, where people see your job as the experience your company from an external point of view in the outside. So they feel curious, they feel hopeful that one day they're going to work for you, right? But one of their pain points is your employee value proposition is unclear. There are some companies that you already know what they're about. They're so vision and mission oriented. You can feel it. It's almost tangible, right? And you can quickly connect with their mission and vision. When it comes to the higher stage, how do they feel? A lot of anxiety, but they're also excited about the possibility of working in your company. What is the pain point? In personal process is so, like, the process can be so random. I've experienced there's a particular interview that I had. I think it was for a role, I can't remember. And one of the reasons why I decided to go, or I thought about joining that company, was because of how the interviewer made me feel. It was such a pleasant interview. It didn't feel like I was being asked questions. It felt like I was just, I was just talking, I was just interacting, just having conversations. And it was an interview, and they were scoring me. It was still designed intentionally, but the process did not feel like one, even if it was. And the end goal, they were still scoring me, right? But it made me actually think of, I do like this company with how they treated me during the interview process, right? And it was so personal. It was quite. I enjoyed it, honestly. And I'm thinking about it again. It was very nice, right? So on boarding stage, they feel overwhelmed. They're excited, but yet they're overwhelmed because there's a lot to take in. You're trying to tell them about your company's goals and vision. It can be a whole lot, right? So the pain is information overload. Growth, they feel motivated to grow. But if there is no career path, they will feel like there's a cap and there's a glass ceiling that is not allowing them grow. People want to really work. I mean, when I work with a lot of young people, they are so energetic and so bubbly. They have ideas, they are so into the organization. They want to solve problems. But when it now feels like, oh, at the end of the day, I will not even grow, it's just like, I'll just be the same role for 5 years. It can make everybody, any type of person, feel discouraged, and they begin to read. So what happens is usually that it's not like, oh, they will just stop not working, or they will not be energetic. They will carry that energy that they have into something else. So that's usually what I've seen, maybe into a side also, into a business, into something else. If you already, the organization is not showing that you're serious enough about people's growth, they just redirect that energy, but it's still there, right? So you don't want people to feel like the organization is not the place where there's a language I like to use, where they can do too much. You want them to feel that they can do too much, they can apply themselves, and they will get rewarded for it and grow within your business, right? So the part of thriving, maybe they are also growing in the career, they're thriving, not surviving, but they're thriving, is that they feel engaged and proud. This actually speaks to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where that the peak of people's needs psychologically is self-actualization. They want to they want to expand their horizon, they want to grow their competence, they want to expand. So does your organization help them to expand that way? The pain point here is burnt out. They are doing so much, but it doesn't make any sense to them. They are exerting themselves so much, but it's not making any sense, right? So the exit stage is usually reflective. Oh, I'm leaving this organization. Oh, the memories that I had here. Oh my God, I'm going to miss these people. And the pain of it is lost relationships. So you can see that all these pains, they are actually a way for you to build solutions around them. So unclear EVP tells you that you need to have a stronger EVP. Impersonal process, make it personal. Information overload, spread the onboarding process within a space of 30 days, within the first week. Unclear career path, fix up the career path. Burnout risk, introduce employee assistance program, wellness program, teaching people how to schedule, time management. Lost relationship, alumni, the concept of alumni. That's what solves it, right? When you feel like, oh, they're still within the business, they can even still get referred, they can even still apply for another role in the future, right? They're still within the network of the business. You want to be able to design that, right? When you have all of this and you're building solutions, that's pretty much what design thinking is, that you're using what the end goal, the pain point to build solutions, right? And I mentioned this earlier, where Airbnb case study, they use hosted conversations and persona to solve to create some of these solutions, right? So Airbnb, they use design thinking to completely reimagine performance management. They created employee personas. They understood how different employee experience, on the understanding different employee experiences feedback. They developed hosted conversations. It was a customized performance model that replaced traditional reviews with ongoing empathy-driven dialogue tailored to individual needs and working styles. There is something that I remember that that was initiated, a personal career development plan for individuals within the workspace, right? Where you craft it like, okay, this is your own journey within the business. This is your own career development goal. You can create that, right? It is personalized to their needs and to their goals. It is also met with continuous improvements, continuous conversations with the manager, with the HR. It makes them feel like, you can't do that. And the people will not feel like, okay, yes, so these people really do have me in mind. And, to a great extent, they might not be perfect. They're not a perfect company, but they try, right? So that's pretty much for the stage 2, stage 3 idea. So you want to now co-create with the people. So at the end of the day, employees are not just receivers, or they're not recipients of experience. They co-create it, because you cannot know how to design, how to create solutions for people without bringing them in the picture. How do you know? Like, you don't know everything, right? So you have to get to them, get into their minds. How do they feel? How do they want this to even be for them, right? And bring a consensus and develop ideas from it. So diverge before you converge. I love that framework. I love that line. It says that you generate many ideas before evaluating any. Wild ideas are welcome. They often spark practical breakthroughs that actually solve real needs, using techniques like brainwriting. How might we help you in this? How might we support you in this? All of that many stuff, right? So you also include the end user, involve employees in designing their own experience. How would you want us to build like this life cycle momentum? What will matter to you the most in performance management? What will matter to you the most in talent development, in learner development? What are those ways that you think that, okay, for example, when it comes to management or managers or leaders, the L&D that I've seen that works and has been documented to work is coaching and mentoring, because they don't have time for long form content or long form YouTube videos or long form LinkedIn. They need practical hands-on insights, and you get that from mentoring and coaching. Right? Some people, because of how fast-paced the organization is, they can't assign long courses. They assign short courses, right? Or they come and do a boot camp where a learned professional will come and teach people, and after the day, everybody moves along. So those are things that you want to be able to create as it aligns with your culture, with the type of people you have, the demography you have, the age group you have. Cross-functional thinking. This is one of the things that Airbnb did. They broke silos in the sense that different teams just doing their own. They standardized the sense of community, even when, okay, people were in different departments, people were in different locations. Inviting people from tech, marketing, facilities, finance to ideas of people. So it's everybody, that eventually designs employee experience, right? Diverse perspective reveals solutions that HR alone cannot see. Yes, you don't know everything as HR. So you need to bring people in. Airbnb, so this is what they did in Airbnb. They did ground control, culture by design, not by accident. They created a team called ground control, culture curators that were drawn from every department. Every department were under that team, who were responsible for events, celebrations, employee communication, recruitment programs. This was not just traditional HR, it was very co-creative, it was cross-functional, that treated culture as a living design project. I love it. I mean, thinking about it, I'm in awe, like, God, like, these are the type of design, these are those systems that, it's very interesting to really want to create. So moving on, quickly is to the last prototype and test. This is just a summary, let me not lie. In the last webinar last Friday, this was exactly what we talked about. We broke it down. But it's still under user designs, user-centered design in under employee experience. So that's what I'm still talking about here. So for this part, you want to prototype. I mentioned prototyping, building, piloting before you launch full scale. So you want to create mock-ups, like experience mock-ups. You want to be able to see how it works in practicality before you scale. Yeah, right. So this is just where Airbnb piloted the Belong Anywhere model. They converted open plan offices, like they made open plan offices into flexible neighborhoods like Omni. Now they tested, okay, how would employee move within this office, this Omni office workspace, before we then take it out to other global offices, right? So that's for prototyping. Then you want to test and iterate. A&B use this by using Glassdoor data. They use direct employee feedback to refine. We've talked about this, making sure that you have feedback loops. You're not just taking survey, but you are using the survey to measure, to improve. You're not just asking for people to share what they feel. You're actually using it to improve and to make better that design system you're using. So quickly to the next slide is... Yes. So, like I mentioned the other time, when you're designing, there are frameworks you use that guides as a guiding principle, pillars that you create. That, okay, this is the holistic understanding of what we are trying to create, right? So in Airbnb, that's pretty much what they did. All their architecting and building the employee experiences design was based on 4 pillars. So they used which is the Mark Levis model, connecting at every level creates belonging, and belonging drives belonging to the brand. So, which means that they wanted people to feel like they belonging, a sense of belonging anywhere mattered to them and mattered to their vision and how they would achieve their goals. So belonging, I know belonging is very nuanced, it's every part, is layered. So they took, okay, company to employee belonging. This is what we're going to be doing. Leaders will be very transparent. You're not just talking about, oh, we did this, we decided to do this. You are explaining the why. You're explaining to people why you are doing it. So if you're inviting people into the areas that they might not see, and you're explaining. So, and sometimes you know your face like, oh, I actually do understand why the company did take that decision. So that's what leads to that kind of conversation where people even advocate for the organization themselves. Core Value Council evaluated every major decision. So there's something that actually in the European Union they have, where they have work councils, right? As an organization in the EU, you cannot make a decision without taking it to the work council, right? You need whatever it is, even if anything that has to do with employment, people's work condition, you have to take it to the work council. You cannot even also like do layoffs or do anything with if you try to do it without the work council, you are in trouble. There's a fine for it in the EU. So they did that, and they brought that type of model into the business where there was a group of employees that came from different levels of the business. You don't always have to be managerial. It could be from entry level, it could be for any level, and they make them a council that evaluated almost like a union, but it's not a union, right? Union can be very hostile, but this one was okay as a voice, like a form of employee voice within the business. So employees then had direct voice on cultural direction through co-creation forums. I mean, I will not even say, like, I think I will need to even go back after this webinar, sit with these things and begin to table it one by one and dissect it, just so that it's something that I could tangibly, or we could tangibly begin to build in the African ecosystem. So the next one is the employee to employee, how people relate, the sense of belonging between employees, daily interaction. So the ground control team creating meaningful rituals, celebrations from, those people were from different departments. Then cross-functional teams designed to break silo mentality. When it comes to a remote organization, one of the things that you're going to battle, this one is not like, is that silos. Communication can either make or break a remote team. It is so important that if you don't get communication right, it might eventually come to actually affect the business, right? So what's for remote, one of their greatest enemy is silo team, where there is no cross-functional communication. There is no company-wide communication. It's just one part, maybe one team, they hear one information before the other team knows. It's going to be like a year, all those kind of things, right? So when it comes to remote teams, actually, this is something that I find that is a pain point, but it's something that you can actually crack and begin to build intentional systems that solve that problem. So every employee expected to champion culture. Is not just an HR thing. Then they move to employee to customer. So with all of that designed, they now use it to train employees on how to relate with customers. Now, employees required to host or stay and guest, so they would actually experience the product they were making from the customer standpoint. Internal belonging enabled external belonging, which made the mission a much more personal. Employees became brand ambassadors because they experienced the promise, right? Because they were experiencing it internally. So because they have something to give. So when they say you can't give what you don't have, they have to give. So they are giving what they have, literally. So employee to community. This one was so interesting when I saw it. It was the fact that instead of holiday parties, what Airbnb began to do was that they now did the money that they would use to do parties, they paid to employees to go and volunteer. So it's just the consciousness and the idea of humanity, where all that you do is to the end of people, right? And they paid time off for community volunteering. It was embedded in AX. In organizations in Nigeria, we do that too. For example, CSR initiatives, when the organization gives back to the society. But this one, it was the employees themselves that volunteered to design it, and they were paid for it. Employees connected with local hosts on charitable projects. Community connection amplified a sense of belonging. I don't think with this framework, that sense of belonging will not have it. We have it because it makes the whole process very grounded, almost like they are grounded in the reality of the work that they do. And with that, they're able to innovate, create solutions, bring ideas that move the business forward. And it did move the business forward. So this is just the layered ecosystem, 3 environments: cultural environment, physical environment, and technological environment. This is what makes this is the ecosystem of employee experience. Cultural environment, your values, what are your clear-cut defined behavioral values, your recognition rituals, psychological safety. In Airbnb, belong anywhere was not just a slogan. It wasn't on the wall, written on the wall as an artifact. It was a lived experience. It was a lived cultural architecture. Everything was intentionally to the end of a sense of belonging. Physical environment as well, they designed it to the end of belonging. What I mentioned that they, instead of office white bright light spaces, they made it homely, like an actual Airbnb host. Technological environment, the tools, systems, how do you integrate all that you use, the tools, HR platform you use, that makes it flow rather than be counterproductive as a bottleneck. So Airbnb, they invested in a seamless internal tooling that reduced administrative burden, enabling employees to focus on meaningful work rather than navigating complex. So something about, in as much as I was talking about AI, something about AI is that for you to test the importance of AI within your business, you have to answer the question, what bottleneck is this AI automation process solving? Is it going to be a bottleneck because people are trying to understand the system, or is it going to help to remove the bottleneck? You understand it? So it's just that complexity within AI automation and HR technology and people technology as well. So moving forward quickly, so all of that, you can see when we talk about all of that, this is the outcome as to how designing employee experience intentionally leads to actual business outcomes. For example, I did mention the higher profit, companies experience more profit, 4 times more profit with a strong employee experience. Average revenue, they experience 2 times revenue. there's a 40% lower turnover, and they are 5 times more likely to use design thinking in value in that HR, in that process of employee experience is design thinking, because what else? You're building for people. So the process of building for people is building with people. So exactly. So this was the Airbnb employee experience outcomes, where number one, they became the best place to work. Do you know how big that is? Because Airbnb is not the only organization that exists, but for them to get number one, as at the year that they did the things that they did, that goes to show that it was really productive. And then I mentioned the roles, they had great employee value proposition. They projected profit increase of over 4 years, a 3,400% profit increase within the space of 4 years. And top brand, they became the strongest brand advocates of any company. So, for example, your branding, there's no way you know. I could even think of companies that have good branding in Nigeria, where they would put out a role and they would say that they got 10,000 roles for just one role. And for just one position. So these things actually do work. They do work. So just to round it up, is to say that employee experience is emotional, right? Great employee experience designs pride, belonging, and purpose. When you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, people want to do good work. They want to do challenging work that matters. In as much as Nigerian ecosystem often feels like, people are lazy, they are usually bans and Gen Z slanders about how Gen Zs don't like to work. But quite frankly, I've experienced quite the opposite. People I've worked with, they like to work. They are so passionate and driven. The only problem that if it's not making sense to them, you will not find them there. But if it makes sense to them, they will always go all out, right? So these emotions then drive engagement. When people feel proud about the work they do, I feel proud about the work I do. That's why I'm into it, that I like people experience. I see in a bigger picture. So in any organization I find myself in, you don't even need to tell me or cajole me to be engaged, because I see it as there is a reason why I'm doing things I do. So I constantly will be preferring solutions. Then the sense of belonging leads to retention, because people are looking for community. So if you can build a sense of community within your organization, it leads to retention. I've seen where people don't leave communities because of the community they build in it. That's why a lot of our parents or elderly people, they're in civil services because of the community they built, and they're still there, and they will retire from there. Purpose, performance, when people have the sense of why, it guides, and when it comes to performance, the more the reason why people do the things they do are becoming expanded, the more their performance expands. So as we as human beings, we grow in our convictions. As we grow in convictions, the ways we see that we can show value and we can create value get expanded in return, which then leads to better performance. So moving on rapidly, is the EX strategies mindset is to shift how we think and act. You can't do things if you are not somebody that is more like, you have to be before you're able to do. So being is in the context of what you think, your posture, your perspective, your mindset, the narratives that you have, which will then translate into the things that you do and the solutions you prefer. So we design programs for employees. You don't want to think that way anymore. We design employee experiences with people. We design experiences with employees. HR measures inputs. It is that employee experiences measures outcomes, the lives change. You don't measure the activities you do. You are measuring the impact of the activities that you do. One size fits all approach, it might feel too generic. You want to at least have some nuances where people can feel that they are seen here, or they can, this speaks to them, and make it contextual. Like I mentioned in the last class, that you can have a global standardized framework, especially maybe you are a global facing organization. But a lot of times what mature multinationals have done is that they do a global standardized approach, but then they contextualize and they personalize the experience. For example, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a global brand, but when it comes to the African ecosystem or countries they establish themselves in, they make it, they market their product with the cultural nuances and the context. Annual engagement surveys, continuous listening, and rapid iteration. Instead of just doing once in a year engagement survey, you want to have feedback loops that makes people give you feedback for you to improve better. Culture is HR responsibility. No, culture is everyone's responsibility. Everybody is a part of it. Employee as a resource to manage. No, employees as human beings that we should invest in because of the moment. That's because of the explosive ROI we are able to get if we do well to pay attention to the people that build and they are the ones that drive organizational success in any type of company. So this is we're rounding up now. Key takeaways is to note that employees are users. Design accordingly. Design with empathy. Start with empathy, not with solution. Listen before you this is very funny because in pop culture, people will tell you, oh, when you come and meet me for advice, do you want me to listen or do you want me to give you your solution straight? So there's all of that, but I will say that listen. I think that that conversation will come up and people always tell you, just try to be a good listener before you give people solutions. Listen first. I know that you know what you think they need, but listen first, right? So I'm still going to say that I start with empathy and listen deeply to what the pain points are, then use that to build. Co-creation is not optional. Your employees are not your children. They're not people that you just come and tell what to do. They are not your children. They are not your family members. They are people with autonomy, people that are deserving of dignity, people that have their autonomy. They have free will, and you should accord them and honor them for that, and do not try to impose, but work with them. And culture is designed, not declared. You don't declare that, say, well, we're going to do this, and you don't do it. You design it. It is when people now begin to feel that something has shifted. That's when they'll be like, something is changing. It is felt, it is experienced. It's not ed. You don't get experiences, you feel experiences. So employee experience is a business strategy, it's not a benefit. It is to the end of the organization, because at the end of the day, everything we do must align to organizational goals and objectives. So wrapping up is to now round up with a quote by Mark Levy, who was the head of employee experience at that cultural shift moment. It says, and he just said, don't just mess up the culture, design with intention. So which means that don't be careless about the culture. You have to design it intentionally. There's a video I saw as a young person that I am, and the person was complaining about everything about life is so intentional. In fact, to even be unintentional, you have to be intentionally unintentional. For you to be lazy, it requires intentionality to be lazy. At the end of the day, everything must be designed. If our relationships, when the food we eat, we're intentional about it. So why then are we not intentional about the people that build and make the company that we're in a bigger success? So, I would say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I do hope that I was really able to share. I really tried to pack all of this in like 20 slides, but there's a lot more conversations that can be had, and I would really tell you to check Airbnb Employee Experience on LinkedIn. This conversation actually is a growing conversation within the HR and the African ecosystem, but it's something that I'm really very particular about, and I always love conversations around it. So thank you very much. We've come to the end of my presentation. I know that it took a number of time. I'm so sorry, sincere apologies, but I hope that it was worth it and it was well worth your time. Thank you very much. Dr. Oluyemi, yes. Please, can you still hear me? I hope I was.
Wow. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed the session like I did. If you don't mind, let's unmute and let's celebrate our facilitator for tonight. Let's just say thank you. Let's appreciate her as we draw the curtain on tonight's edition. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Adebisi Ogunsoya. So proud of you. I learned so much to take away. Thank you so much. They are muted. We can unmute to thank our. A lot of people are saying thank you in the chat box.
Thank you, Ms. Adebisi Ogunsoya.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.
This was so fantastic.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for your time and being patient with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Totally enjoyed
Thank you so very much, ma.
Great.
I really want to be like you when I grow up.
Please, please, don't flatter me. I'm humble. I'm still a young girl, please. I'm still very young. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the feedback as well. I'm glad that I'm able to get this feedback, and moving on, I'll be able to like improve and just know better, have more talking points. Thank you so much. I think we can end. Dr. Oluyemi, please over to you.